Well, folks, you're not going to win a lot of games, probably any games, when you're not rebounding the basketball. Um, this is not a number that, again, is going to be translated into wins. It's just not. All right, 43 to 26. That's a large discrepancy for an Iowa team that dominated. I shouldn't say dominated. Beat Wisconsin in that category in all three matchups last year. All right, Iowa's going to have problems beating anybody without giving up less offensive rebounds, and again, getting more offensive rebounds themselves. And again, we saw some improvement in these last couple of games, specifically Maryland. Iowa seemed to clean up some of these issues, but this was a key. And I said it in advance of this game, and I'm not the only one, obviously, because this has been the biggest issue with this team thus far. Obviously, lack of defense is still there at times. The rebounding woes are going to lose. They're just going to lose this team games, and we saw it tonight. The 87 to 78. That is not indicative of how lopsided this game was. It was never really ever close. Maybe the first 7-8 minutes you could argue it was close, but overall, just not a good enough effort on the glass. And you're also not going to win. I mean, you're not going to win many games. You're probably never going to beat Wisconsin, giving up 87 points. Now, this is a good Wisconsin defense. It's always going to be a good Wisconsin defense. So you're just simply not going to win games when you get punished on the glass, when you give 87 points up to a Badger team that is not an offensive juggernaut. Now, Johnny Davis is spectacular. We knew that, as is Keegan Murray. Both of those guys showed out tonight, but ultimately you just can't give up those types of numbers. We will be joined here shortly, I believe, by Coach Gary Close, who was at the game tonight. No surprise there. His two teams at his heart, I guess you could say. So he was in Madison this evening. If you want to give us a call, though, let's wait until Gary calls in, because I believe Gary is going to be phoning us here briefly. So we'll wait on the call line, but we'll run through some of your comments, and then we'll open up those lines after we get off the phone with Gary. So the real Hayden says you can't win. Excuse me. You can't win a 1-on-5 game. Every good team Iowa has played, it's been Keegan Murray versus everyone else. Purdue was a fluke. Final score closer than the game was. Changed my mind. Well, the Purdue game was not a fluke, Hayden. I mean, if you want to say that the result as a whole was a fluke, the final score, maybe he's talking about the Badger game. Yes, this final score was certainly closer than the actual game was, but that Purdue game, Iowa just everywhere. I mean, defensively they played well. They rebounded the ball decently well against a team that really overmatched them as far as height. But I wouldn't call it a fluke. I understand the frustration here with this. And look, the defense, we've been saying it for 5 years now. The defense has to be better. It just has to be better than it was tonight. And I'm talking about the half-court defense. I'm not talking about the press. When the press works, it's great. It creates turnovers. It disrupts rhythm. But once the other team gets past half court and gets set, Iowa has problems stopping people from scoring. It comes down to that, and it's that simple. And you can no longer blame lack of athleticism. I heard that all last year. I heard it the year before that. I heard it the year before that. Really, ever since Adam Woodbury and Jared Utoff, Mike Gasell, those guys graduated, all I've heard is Iowa doesn't have the horses to play defense, which is just garbage, because I see Wisconsin do it every year with guys who aren't great athletes, although Johnny Davis is a heck of an athlete. There's not a ton of athletes on that team. They play defense. They play together. They teach fundamentals. And until Iowa can get over a hump defensively, there's just always going to be a ceiling. I feel like it's the exact opposite conversation that I'm having as it relates to Iowa football. Like, I'm not complaining about results per se. Iowa football just won 10 games. I'm not complaining about the fact that Iowa basketball has been to how many straight, 2 or 3 straight NCAA tournaments. I believe 3 straight. If you count the year that, of course, the tournament got canceled, they would have made that tournament. The problem is, there's going to be a ceiling. You got to figure out a way to break through on that side of the ball. And right now, Iowa's not able to do that. So, it is what it is. Now, can they get those problems fixed? I would think so. Again, they have the horses. They've got the athletes. These kids can play defense. We see it individually at times from guys like Tony Perkins, Aaron Eulis, Keegan Murray, Chris Murray. But they just got to be a little bit more connected defensively and body a guy up, box a guy out, grab some rebounds. I know that's easier said than done, but this is not a real big Wisconsin team. Chris Vogt, the transfer from Cincinnati, is a big kid. I think he's around 7 foot. But again, it's just will and determination. And I know that Wisconsin has been built on fundamentals for years, but it's just got to be better. I don't care if you're playing Wisconsin or who you're playing. Now, again, Maryland was a good example. If Iowa rebounds the basketball, even when the defense isn't great, you're going to have a chance to win a lot of games because the offense is really good. It's really efficient. But here's the problem, folks. If you don't play any defense and you don't rebound, you can almost guarantee Iowa loses games. They're going to lose the game. Last year, you could be bailed out at times because you may just get Frederick hot and Wieskamp hot and Garza's doing his thing and Bohannon's hot. You don't have all the shooters this year. You just don't. All right. You have some scorers. Obviously, Keegan has really emerged. His brother is playing well, but you do not have the volume of shooting that you had last year to bail you out of poor defensive showings, lack of rebounding. Now, they were actually decent rebounding team last year, but a part of that was Luka Garza was really good on the boards, and certainly they had Jack Nungy, who is showing out for Xavier right now. So they're going to have to figure out a way. They're going to have to figure out a way because the lack of rebounding isn't going away. I don't see that going away. They can improve it. They played Maryland even in that category, just about even in that category, I believe, earlier this week. But it starts defensively. As Coach Close has talked about, defensive possession is not over until you secure that board. And Iowa wasn't able to do enough of that this evening. Certainly, the Brad Davison stuff. I'm just tired of talking about him. I think he's a dirty player, and he didn't do anything tonight that I would say was dirty. But we've seen him, punch a guy in his sensitive area, if you will. We've seen him kick people, try to trip people. I get tired of watching it. I think it's disgraceful to the Big Ten in college basketball, but it is what it is. That's not why Iowa lost. I will say the game changed after the shot clock or no shot clock violation call. The call in that first half, I think less than midway through the first half, where Wisconsin should have been charged a shot clock violation. Ball clearly did not touch the rim. Somehow that call was upheld. I'm not quite sure how that's possible, but it was, and so we move on. And the game really seemed to change at that point. It was a 1-point game at that point. Iowa had cut the lead to 1, and it was a snowball after that. So disappointing on that note. All right, getting through our comments here. Ray says, midway through the first half, the team should have gotten the bus and headed down 151. 5.5-minute scoring drought is pathetic. Well, here's the thing, Ray. You can survive scoring droughts when you're playing defense. I tell you, I don't have the data to back this up, but I guarantee you Wisconsin has scoring droughts because when Johnny Davis, as great as he is, when he's not in the game, and he's not going to be able to play 40 minutes a game. So I can guarantee you, looking through the box scores of Wisconsin's previous games this year so far, there are nights where Johnny Davis, if he's out for 5-10 minutes, and typically he's probably going to play 35 plus, right? But I'm telling you, Wisconsin's not great offensively, so they pride themselves on playing defense when your best players are out of the game. That's just what you have to do when you're struggling to put the ball in the basket. That can't be like, it shouldn't be assumed, well, Iowa didn't score, the lead should grow. That shouldn't be. You should be able to at least hang around. And the problem with Iowa, and again, this is just, we're beating a dead horse over and over again, but the problem with Iowa is consistently you fall behind, you go through a drought, and just like that, the game is 15, 20-point deficit, and you're just not going to win games doing that. And it's hard to climb back into games when you're not playing defense. That's the other problem. It's not hard to lose leads. We saw that against Virginia. We saw that against Illinois. We saw that against Maryland. It's actually pretty easy to lose leads. But when you are trying to come back in a deficit, it's next to impossible, right? You've got to figure out a way to get stops. And Iowa, just every time they got within 13, 14, and the game was just never close after that initial drought by Iowa. So you hit it on the head, Ray. The 5-minute drought, yeah, I mean, you can blame the offense, but there are going to be times where you're going to have droughts, and you've got to, especially on the road, you got to figure out a way to hang around. The Real Hayden says, this is why we haven't had good crowds. I think people want to see a good team, not just a good player. I'm in the minority of being willing to go watch a lottery pick in person, even if the team isn't good. I understand you're frustrated, Hayden. I'm trying to maintain a level of balance here because I think We can easily overreact, and there's no reason to do that. But again, I point out those issues, unless they change, there's going to be a ceiling. They're going to win some games. And they're winnable games coming up. Indiana's a winnable game. Penn State, that's a very winnable game. Nebraska's a very winnable game. Northwestern, those games are going to be winnable. Iowa's going to be in a position in late February to where if they can make a run, they can make the tournament. That's just how it's going to be, because they're gonna overmatch some teams. Keegan Murray is that good, just like I think Johnny Davis is that good. I think certainly Wisconsin's ceiling is higher right now because they play defense and they rebound. Simple as that. Clay, so are we bad at basketball again? No, this is still a really good offense. If you look at Ken Pomeroy's ratings, they're still a top 5 offense in the country, but they're not even a top 100 defense in the country, according to Ken Pomeroy, which is adjusted according to opponent strength of schedule. I still think it's a little early to really read into those Ken Palmer ratings, because Iowa's schedule, it's kind of a domino effect. You're playing lesser teams and you're going to sag off on defense at times. How much is that just naturally you're not good at on the defensive end, or how much is it, again, you're up 30 and you're going to have a 5 to 7 minute portion of the game where you're not playing great defense. So again, I think you have to see more of the Big Ten season, but the numbers would bear out that Iowa still isn't very good defensively. That's what the numbers say, and I think we saw it tonight. Hyperlocal, they look so bad, confused, 100% on Fran. They have more talent to play defense, still non-existent. Connor doesn't deserve the minutes. I'm sorry, he doesn't do anything out there. Connor, I appreciate this about Connor. I'm starting to appreciate Connor more for what he brings defensively, and Coach Close has brought that up in the past. There are times where I've dogged on Connor, but he does work on the defensive end, and oftentimes he's guarding guys who are bigger than him. But he, 0 points, five fouls tonight. It's sort of like the story with Jordan Bohannon. Unless you're getting threes out of him, he's sort of a liability. So unless Connor is playing lockdown defense, he's a liability, right? I mean, I hate to say that. I like Connor, I like Jordan, but that's just how it's going to be. You've got to figure out a way to get Jordan Bohannon open. I see all thumbs. Your comment, you're exactly right. But here's the problem. We've been seeing this, right, through the Big Ten season for several seasons now. And I know Jordan didn't play much 2 seasons ago. Last year, you have so many weapons that I think it's hard to really evaluate how much attention Jordan is getting. But certainly, it's frustrating, and you're going to have to figure out a way to get those guys involved. Specifically Jordan, because Connor, he is what he is offensively. All right, he's not going to, for some reason, he's not hitting threes. And I've really thought that would be something that would sort of come as he continued his career. Again, Gary has talked about he doesn't have a bad-looking shooting stroke, but he just can't seem to make threes. And I don't quite know why, but he's got no confidence from 3 right now. You see teams leaving him open. He's not able to shoot it and make them pay, so that's frustrating. I believe we have Gary close here. Coach, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Coach, yes, I can hear you just fine, and we'll start with this. Your initial thoughts from a disappointing performance for Iowa, and certainly an encouraging one from Wisconsin.
Yeah, it was. Iowa beat Wisconsin 3 times last year. It looked like they hadn't forgotten about that, and they were sharp pretty much right from the get-go, and controlled the game pretty much throughout. So it's hey, in this league, you gotta take a look at the film and see where you fell short and move on, because it's just one right after the other. So you got to hand it to Wisconsin. They just played real well tonight. They're on a bit of a roll right now.
We knew Johnny Davis was terrific. We knew Keegan Murray was terrific, and both of those guys played really well tonight. I thought the game certainly changed, and I'm not blaming the officials on this, but the game changed after the long delay when the officials went to the monitors to check to see if the shot hit the rim. If it was a shot clock violation, they ended up upholding the call, which I thought it was the wrong call, but regardless, it seemed to switch momentum. It was a 1-point game at that point, and from that point on, it got lopsided. Did you see the same thing, Coach?
Yeah, I don't know if I would just pinpoint that. I just thought, the rebounding thing came back to really haunt. They have a lot of offensive rebounds. I thought Iowa's guards were clearly outplayed by Wisconsin's guards up until the very end when Jordan went off a little bit there at the end. But They controlled the game. So, and they got beat up pretty good on the boards again, which, you can't give this team extra possessions because they're so efficient when the ones they've got. I think they gave up 13 or 14 offensive rebounds, which was way too many, and didn't shoot well from the free throw line. So to come on the road, I thought what they really lacked, Corey, was a tough sucker that could just make some big time plays when they needed it, or get a big rebound, or take a charge. I thought they were out physical today, which Wisconsin sometimes does up here. So, but like I said, you got to learn from the game and move on, because there's one coming right around the corner.
Coach, I don't know nearly as much about Wisconsin, of course, as you do, but last year they mentioned those 3 matchups. Iowa won all 3, including one in the Big Ten tournament, but Iowa won the rebounding battle in every one of those 3 games. And I know these teams are built differently, especially Iowa, but the margin tonight, you referred to it, 43-26.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you really account for that?
I think they were just out physical, outworked. I think a lot of times they were right there. They're just quicker to the ball and more aggressive to the ball, and it was a huge. I thought it was a difference in the game. They play. You play decent defense, you get them to miss a shot, and then you get them an offensive rebound. And I'll tell you what, they made those offensive rebounds hurt. I'd love to know how many they converted, because I think they converted a high percentage of that. And it really wasn't a 9-point game, but I'm guessing second chance points was much more than 9 differential, although I don't know for sure.
Iowa also struggled from the free throw line, Gary, which is something odd for this team. The number 1 team percentage-wise in the conference, 11 of 19. And don't get me wrong, the defense wasn't terrible at times, but they gave up 14 points in the first 4 minutes. And defensively, you just can't do that against the Wisconsin. You can't give up 87 points against Wisconsin. And certainly rebounding has a lot to do with that. But the half-court defense, to me, is still just not there. I mean, the press creates turnovers at times, but when it's not creating turnovers, there seems to be easy buckets on the other end. How does Iowa figure this out mid-season?
Yeah, that's a real good question. It's like a lot of things. You got to break the tape down and see where you're falling short, whether it's a rotation or getting beaten off a dribble or leaving your feet, and they just got to shore things up. It's it's a work in progress. I thought the zone was effective at times, but then again, when they got decent stops, they could not get a rebound to finish the defense off, and that'll really make your defense look bad. I don't know if you have the stats, but I'm going to guess their second chance points were, probably 15, and you take those off the board, it's a totally different game, and it makes your defense look a lot better. I think that I worry about that as much as anything. They've got to find somebody that can, other than Keegan, they can go get some rebounds for them when they need it. And a guy like Tyler Wall, I mean, that kid's not huge or real athletic, but he goes and gets boards. And I always got to find somebody that can do the same thing.
Yeah, Wisconsin, 18 second chance points and just got 4 points off their bench. Iowa, 21 points off their bench. Wisconsin, 13 turnovers to Iowa's 8. But again, we beat this horse dead because it wasn't even close, and it just shows you the impact rebounding and second chance points have. So
18 points is a lot. I mean, that's huge. That's a huge amount. I mean, that's almost a quarter of their points coming right from offensive rebounds. That's an area you can clean up pretty quick. So, but it's something that's come and bit them throughout this year. And Wisconsin's not exactly a dominating rebounding team. They're pretty efficient on the defensive end, but they beat them on the offensive end too tonight. So they've got to get better in that area quick.
Gary, I have to ask you. We've discussed Brad Davison before, but the late in the first half, the kick out on the 3. I know that the officials talked to the Fox Sports 1 crew at halftime, and they explained the second half that it was more so the hip that hit Davison on the way down, but it sure looked like Davison kicked out that leg. Did you see that play, and did they show a replay in the Kohl Center?
No, they didn't. I didn't really see it. I think I didn't like about it was so late. It was just a late whistle. That's what really it was a bad call, and it was a big call because it goes from 10 to 13, and it's an air ball. Maybe they get the rebound and go down and score it. It's an 8-point game. They give it a 5-point differential. So I didn't see a replay. He does have a reputation of kicking his leg out every once in a while. But what I didn't like about it was a call that seemed to me to be really late after the play had been done.
Absolutely. And certainly the shot clock violation call, that also cost Iowa 2 points. But regardless, certainly this game was lost many other places, specifically the rebounding and the defensive woes. So, Gary, hopefully we get a better result. I know Iowa gets about a week off, so you'll have some more time to work on the boards, and they'll get a feisty Indiana team that just is coming off this win tonight against Ohio State. So what do you see for Iowa?
They got their work cut out. Indiana must have played well because Ohio State had been playing great.
Yeah.
That's an Ohio State team that beat Wisconsin almost by 20. But that's the way this league's going to be. That's why you've got to have a short memory. You got to, they got to analyze where they fell short here and realize that Wisconsin is playing real well. But they got some areas they got to get better and get ready for Indiana because if not, then you run into a long losing streak and you just got to try to avoid that by moving on and moving on. You got to have a short memory in this league.
And just glancing at
your butt kicked every once in a while. Just
glancing at the schedule, Gary, this is the last week-long break, I believe, of the season. I mean, it's bang, bang, bang after this. So whatever fixes can be made during a break need to be made now. Yep,
I agree. And hopefully that'll be the case.
All right, Coach.
Year. It's one game.
Absolutely. Safe travels back to Middleton, and we'll talk to you next week.
You bet, Corey. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Gary. Always appreciate hearing from Coach Close, and our line is open if you want to give us a call. 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. Iowa with the 87-78 loss to Wisconsin. I'm frankly shocked that it was that close as far as the scoreboard is concerned. We all know it felt a lot more lopsided, specifically because of what Gary brought up, second chance points. Again, I just don't think the half-court defense is very good right now. I think I'm also sour just because of we've been seeing the issues defensively cost this team games for, again, 5 years, and it is frustrating. It is frustrating, but it's not changing. I mean, it's just not going to change unless there are changes behind the scenes. You're going to have games where you play okay defense. You're going to have games like this where I thought Iowa played pretty poor defensively throughout the game. That's just my take on this. Getting back to your comments, All Thumbs says we're going to keep losing if we don't start rebounding. Hyperlocal, you're right. The game changed with the no shot clock, and it did. The momentum switched at that point. I mean, you just look at the play-by-play. It changed. At that point, it changed. Again, not saying Iowa was going to win the game, but Iowa was actually playing okay at that point. Now, Wisconsin had built, I think, a 7 to 9 point lead. Iowa actually came back and, again, got it within one, and they would have had the ball with a chance to take the lead. All right. So I don't know what the officials saw. I don't know what the officials were reviewing if they determined you can't overturn that. I don't know the rules on that. Can you overturn that if you find that it didn't hit the rim? I don't know why, if you can't overturn it, why do we even go to the monitor in the first place? Because Wisconsin had gotten the rebound and the clock reset. So I don't know what we were looking at there. It certainly was clear from my vantage point that the ball did not touch the rim. I don't know how much more conclusive you can get. And maybe I'm a Homer Iowa fan making that comment, but to me, it was obvious. And again, it hurts you. It hurts you because if you can't seem to grab momentum on the road and keep momentum, and it's Iowa's fault. I mean, you can't blame the officials, right? You cannot let that disruption, and it was a long break for nothing, but you can't let that disruption disrupt your rhythm on the road. And I know it's kind of an intangible thing, rhythm and momentum, but when you're on the road, you better find a way to sustain momentum when you grab a hold of it. And Iowa had some at that point, and it is frustrating to see. Johnny Davis, again, terrific tonight, and I know all the scouts there, you kept talking about that on the broadcast. Johnny Davis this evening, let me grab his points. He had 26. So Keegan actually outscores Johnny Davis. Isn't that funny? And Johnny Davis was 3 rebounds from a double-double in the first half, and yet he didn't have a double-double. 9 rebounds total, so 3 in the, I believe 3 in the, or 2 in the second half, if I have that correct. But again, he is terrific. I think these are maybe the 2 best teams. Kofi Coburn is certainly in the discussion. I think you could argue that these guys, Keegan and Johnny Davis, are the 2 best in the league. The difference right now is Wisconsin rebounds well and plays defense well. And that's why this Wisconsin team, there's a reason why, and I know Gary was there during their last Final Four run, but there's a reason why Bo Ryan and Greg Gard teams have an opportunity to make a run in a postseason tournament. They've done it. And I hate to say it, but there's a reason why Iowa has not. There's a reason why Iowa hasn't gotten past the first weekend, because you've got to play defense when you go up against the Oregons of the world, or the Gonzagas, or the Villanovas, or any of the teams that Iowa has lost to in the tournament. Tennessee, for instance, almost won that game, but I digress. Joe Welsh, hard to watch the second team come in sometimes with rhythm like that. The 11 to 10 minute mark in the first half. Yeah, again, I don't know. I mean, was it that, or was it just the I've talked about the hockey line changes. I don't love that, because we saw it against Maryland really hurt Iowa. Fran goes to the hockey line change, and then he basically has to sub all of them out because they've lost all momentum they had early. Fran likes to do that, and it's part of his philosophy. It's how he coaches. Again, I don't necessarily know if the pros outweigh the cons or not, but it is. I understand the frustration, momentum and rhythm wise, because Iowa was playing well at that point before the momentum switched. All Thumb says, why did Fran sit Keegan the first time we went down by 10? I thought about that too, but the guy needs to get some rest at some point. I don't know what point in the first half the 10-point lead had. I don't know what point the lead had been ballooned to 10, but I did notice that. And it is hard. I mean, I said it during the non-conference season. It appeared to me like Iowa was a bit less one-dimensional than, say, last year, which would be crazy to think about when you lost Garza, Wieskamp, Frederick, Nunji. But the difference is, during the non-conference, and again, we always sprinkled that with some salt, because we understood that opponent-wise, Iowa was not playing the type of competition that was easy to evaluate in a game like this. So again, you can't be one-dimensional, and if you're completely reliant on Keegan at every moment in a game, you're not going to win many games. The league is too good, and one injury to Keegan, we saw him fall, take a hard fall in that second half. One bad injury, and man, what are you going to do? So you're going to have to figure out a way to get Tony Perkins rolling offensively. He was playing better a couple of weeks ago. Certainly Jordan Bohannon, we've talked about him. How do you get him open? I don't have the answer to that, but he's got to be making threes if he's in the game. He's got to be. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, this is Pat. How you doing, Corey?
I'm all right, Pat. Not the best of nights. What do you think?
Well, just a couple of quick comments. The whether the ball hit the rim or not.
Yeah.
And I know the announcers, they mentioned it. I just don't think that the officials looking at that small screen, I don't think they could tell. It was obvious on mine because I got a 65-inch TV, but it was easy to see it there. But I don't know if they could see that.
Well, I mean,
they're looking at a really small monitor.
They are, but I don't know how it could be. Yeah, I don't know how it could be so obvious to us at home. Now, granted, I'm looking at whatever my TV is, 62-inch TV, and I get what you're saying, but was it even close in your mind?
Well, I think it was close enough that on a screen that small that they just probably looked at it and says, well, we can't tell, so we're going to go with the call.
Well, need to get a bigger screen then.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the other thing, and Fran is notorious for this. The lead went from, I think it was Wisconsin up 1 to 12. And, one of the best ways to kill momentum, that the other team might have is to call a timeout. And he just refuses to do that.
Yeah, he doesn't like to do that, does he?
He does not. He for whatever reason, he likes to save his timeouts. I don't know if he's saving them for retirement or what he's saving them for, but he just does not call timeout in order to kill momentum. And I really would like to see him do that more often, because he's done that, the entire time he's been at Iowa. He just does not try to kill a run by the other team, by calling timeout.
Well, Pat, just to validate what you just said, it was 20-19 when that little shot clock review occurred, and it ballooned to 32-19. And at that point, I hate to say it, when it was 32-19, the game, you felt like the game, and that was the second push Wisconsin had made, and Iowa did make a bit of a push to get it back within 5, but from then on, it was never close. So I agree with you. Sometimes the timeouts are a bit stingy from Fran. Again, I don't agree with the hockey line changes. To me, that disrupts momentum, especially if you're rolling with the lineup. But it is hard, because when you're on the road, one or two of those mistakes and something can snowball. And again, Iowa was out of this game at the 5-minute mark in the first half.
Yeah, that at the point where you had the bad call on the ball, not hitting the rim. I mean, that was kind of a perfect storm, because you had Fran made a line change. Wisconsin went on a run. He didn't call a timeout. That second unit wasn't playing that great. And Perkins has been struggling. He'll come back.
Hope so, yeah.
These kids, I think 8 of the 12 that are in the lineup, they've never played in these hostile environments with crowds. They're seeing a crowd at Wisconsin for the first time. And they're going to see a crowd at Michigan State for the first time.
Well, I'll say this, Pat.
They just never played in front of them.
My one rebuttal to that, Pat, is I don't think that student body was there tonight, to be completely honest. It looked pretty dead as far as student population.
It did. But it still looked better than what Iowa looked the other night.
You're right.
Iowa, I don't know what they had the other night, maybe 3,500, 4,000. But they didn't have many there. I hope that changes next week.
I don't think they had that many students.
Iowa does need the crowd, especially this year. But, I think that the one thing we have to look at with this team, if you went back to the end of last year or the beginning of this year, is, they lost Garza, they lost Wieskamp, they lost Frederick. I don't think anybody had great expectations for this season. I didn't. I looked at it more as a rebuilding year. Nobody saw Kagan scoring 24 points a game. It's a young team. We got to give them that.
Yeah.
You got some experience there, with Jordan and Connor and some of those guys. But Jordan and Connor, they're not real productive guys right now. And we're relying on the younger people. And I still, these kids, it's promising to me looking forward, especially if you can get Kagan to come back next year. But I think it looks promising going forward. I'm not going to get too wigged out if they don't, make the tournament. It really wasn't an expectation I had before the season started anyway. So
I think the frustration comes, and I would probably echo some of this. I think the frustration, because there's a lot of frustrated fans tonight. I think a lot of the frustration stems from the fact that I think they're starting to recognize the writing on the wall that Keegan is probably gone. And so to quote unquote waste a year with a potential lottery pick is pretty devastating. I mean, I understand. You're right. There weren't a lot of expectations. We didn't know that Keegan was going to make this kind of a jump. But to have a guy, maybe your first lottery pick ever,
right?
That would be a disappointing. That would be a disappointing result if this team can't at least make a run into the tournament. But I get what you're saying. A lot of attrition after last year. I still believe this team, regardless of scoring output, because they lost a lot of scoring last year, I believe that this team has the horses to play a lot better defense than they're playing. And rebounding, they're struggling. And again, they gave up some size with losing Nunji and Garza. And of course, I don't think Agundale and Mulvey have developed quite as quickly as Fran would like. But But defensively, I'm talking half-court defense. This team can be better. They've got the personnel to be better, and I hope they will be. But that's probably my biggest frustration right now is they're losing not because they can't score, but because they can't play defense and they can't rebound. That's the frustrating part.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's if they can't do something going forward here to correct the second chance points that they're giving up,
yeah,
it could be a long second half of the season.
Yeah, and when I say half-court defense, I want to make it clear there are times when Iowa does play good half-court defense, but like Gary has talked about, if you're not securing that board, you can't call that possession a success, regardless of if it's a second chance points or not, because you're giving up, shot after shot after shot, and eventually you're going to get burned. And it's very rare that Wisconsin, to put this in perspective for everybody, Wisconsin scored 87 tonight. They did put up 89 against Marquette, and they put up 89 against Illinois State. But that's the biggest Iowa's lost to Wisconsin tonight is the biggest scoring output for Wisconsin, other than Marquette and Illinois State. So that should tell you all you need to know right there, whether you're talking rebounding or just strictly half-court defense. You're right. It does need to get better and quickly.
Oh yeah, Iowa. They basically got beat at their own game tonight. So, if you'd have give the final score before the game, you'd have said Iowa would have won it.
Well, I'd hope so. I never expected Iowa to give up 87 to Wisconsin. I'll just say that.
No. I thought if Iowa was going to lose this game, I thought it'd be 65-60.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, Wisconsin. I said this earlier. Wisconsin scored 14 points in I think the first 4 minutes. That's just
right.
That's not good, man. That's a big hole defensively to dig yourself early, and then you're playing catch up. I mean, you're just playing catch up from that point forward. I mean, that just to put that in perspective, even if you say 14 in the first 5 minutes, what is that? 28, 50. I mean, you're on pace to give up 112 points in the game if you keep playing that type of defense. So that's just, those little spurts are tough because we know Iowa's going to have times. They don't have the shooters they had last year. There are going to be times where they have a scoring drought. And so, you've got to be able to rely on your defense to be able to keep you in games when you have droughts. Droughts are a part of life in the Big Ten, especially with these good defensive teams they're going up against.
Exactly. And when you're giving up, successive offensive rebounds, you're killing your energy level.
Yeah.
There's a lot more energy expended on defense than on offense. And if you have to do that, 3 times on the same possession, it's going to wear you out.
You're right, Pat. We're on the same page.
Well, that's all I got for the comments. I appreciate you guys and great job with the show.
Appreciate it, Pat. We'll talk to you hopefully next week.
Take care, bud.
All right. Always enjoy the phone calls from Pat and all of our listeners, our callers. Aaron, when will Fran be held responsible for not coaching defense? Look, I mean, there are some guys that are going to specialize in one area of the game. Fran does not specialize in coaching defense. I'm not there every day at practice, but I would guess that a very small portion of the time spent is on defense. That would be my assumption. All right. Now you can see that playing out on the court, right? As far as being held accountable, if he keeps making tournaments, it's going to be a while before he's going anywhere, at least from an administration standpoint. Maybe he gets offered by Notre Dame and leaves, but that's just what you have. And I do feel like it's kind of the opposite conversation that we have with football, right? It's just kind of the opposite conversation. You don't need the defensive unit to be great. You just need it to be decent. And I think maybe half court, if you throw out rebounding, which you can't do, but if you throw out defensive rebounding, I think defensively, as far as on-ball defenders, Iowa's effectiveness in the zone is probably a little better than last year cumulatively at this point. Again, I think they have more athletic players. They have longer guys cumulatively. They don't have bigger guys in the post, but they have longer guys as a team. But the fact that the rebounding has taken such a big step back, it's kind of a wash defensively right now. I don't think it's any better than last year at this point, unless rebounding is better. Maryland, the defense was okay, right? They gave up, 78? I think it's maybe a little less than that. What was the number that they gave up to Maryland? Let me pull this up. Maybe I can't pull it up. My network's giving me fits. Something like that, right? Somewhere in the 70s to Maryland. The point is, they're not going to be able to 75 to Maryland. So, the defense was okay, but even that is not great at home to a Terrapins team that's been okay and whatnot. Lost to Illinois. And I know, again, scored doesn't always tell. Okay, I know we're beating a dead horse. Let's get down to our next comment. I hope Keegan is okay. Absolutely agree with that. All right, absolutely agree with that. I think he is. I mean, again, he came back in the game. One would have to think that he would not have come back in the game, had he not been okay. But it was good to see him return. And to be frank, if he were to go down, you're in danger of this season sort of. I mean, I know that I'm stating the obvious there, but you're in danger of derailing, right? If something were to happen to Keegan. So it was good to see him get back in there. He just hit the deck hard. You're going to have some bruising and some pain tomorrow morning, I'll tell you that. Mark, might be time to give Ogundele or Mulvey some more time with Rebrache at power forward. For tonight, the three bigs had great effort, but only 3 rebounds, 1 each. Yeah, I mean, those numbers have to get better, right? They've got to get better. But Ogundele and Mulvey, man, those guys are just not there yet. You have high hopes for them, but they have not developed as quickly as you'd like them to develop. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line? Can you hear me, caller?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me? You're on the air.
Oh, can you hear me, Corey?
I can.
Okay. I'm going to be extremely critical of the Hawks. I'm sure there's going to be some stuff you're going to agree with and disagree with.
Sure.
But first thing, I have to say this. I know a lot of people think that is it Keegan Murray?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is a lottery pick, and I'm sorry, but in no way, shape, or form is he a lottery pick. He's not a first round pick. He's not even a second round pick. The reason I say that is, as of right now, to me, he looks nothing more than like a Jared Utoff, skill set wise. Yeah, he can step out, hit the 3-point shot. He's got great moves at the bottom of the basket and the low post. But other than that, there's nothing that screams to me lottery pick. I don't know why I keep hearing people say that. I've heard commentators mention that possibility. More so, I can't think of the Jeff Settles is who I keep hearing say it. But I'm sorry, the kid is not a lottery pick. He's got way more that he has to develop before he can look at any kind of first round potential. Well, I guess.
I understand that he's got more to develop, and this is Vincent. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Sorry, I couldn't tell if you could hear me.
No, I didn't know if this was you or your brother. I'll disagree with you on this though. You got to realize that there's a lot of draft experts who have pegged him as a first round draft pick. This isn't all fans saying this. There's a lot of draft experts who I'd have to think know what they're talking about that have pegged him, maybe not as a lottery pick, but as a surefire first round pick. And he is leading the Big Ten. He is leading the Big Ten in scoring, and I believe leading the country in scoring.
And trust me, I understand that, and I can see where they would get that from. But just from my perspective, Corey, there's to me he doesn't look like a first round pick at all, and probably not even a second round pick. To me,
so what does he need to do better in your mind? What? Because right now he shot 5 of 6 from 3 last time out. He struggled a bit from the free throw line tonight. He's more athletic than Jared Utoff. I don't know that he's quite as good of a 3-point shooter as Jared, but I think he's got an all-around skill set that's probably a bit better than Jared's. Jared's was never very athletic, but Keegan is extremely athletic. He's a good shot blocker. I think he's a pretty good on-ball defender. So what does he need to do better in your mind?
And I knew you disagree with me. That's why I love calling into your show.
Yeah.
At least to me, he does have a pretty good outside shot. It can be kind of sporadic, but for the most part, I think he's shooting over 35% from three. He does great right underneath the rim, and especially if he's within 3 to 5 feet in the low post. But as far as driving ability, being able to drive from the perimeter to get to the basket, I don't see enough consistency from him to warrant the first round selection. Also, there's too much stiffness that I see from both Murray brothers when it comes to dribble drive or going to the basket. And again, this is just my perspective, Corey. I'm sure you're going to probably have a different point of view, but a lot of stiffness in the hips, his movement. There's not a lot of explosiveness from him unless he's directly underneath the basket. And again, I'm being critical. I apologize, but that's just kind of my take on it.
Oh, you have a right to your opinion. I'm no draft expert. I am just falling back on what I've seen as far, and I'm not looking at a bunch of mock drafts this time of the year, but there have been a lot of draft experts who have said that he's a first-round draft pick. I will say another reason why, to me, he's at a different level than, say, a Jared Utoff is his efficiency. He's shooting 60% from the field this year. And again, his free throw shooting wasn't great tonight, but he's an 82% free throw shooter. He's averaging 8 boards a game. So I get what you're saying, and it's still early. A lot of these numbers have come. He's still got to prove himself because a lot of these numbers have come against lesser opponents. We've seen we've seen 5 Big Ten games, 2 of which, if I'm thinking back, 2 of which he didn't play in, right? He didn't play in the Purdue or he played in the Illinois game, but he didn't play very well. I think he was still hampered by that ankle. And he didn't play very well against Iowa State. Played really well against Virginia. I thought he played really well tonight, and he played excellent against Maryland, but he's still got room to go. I'm not going to anoint him as a lottery pick yet, but I think he's a potential lottery pick, but I'm just going based off of what I've heard, what I'm hearing from guys who know about the draft a lot better than I do. But you have a right to your opinion. It'll all play out.
Yes. I've heard the same thing from some folks, or especially from the commentators. Again, just my take, but for me, you were saying that he shoots over 60% from the field, right?
Yeah, he's efficient, right?
The only thing I would maybe say to you with the upcoming games, watch him from 5 feet and out. What I mean is, from inside the 3-point line to where the block is at. There's not a lot of fluid, explosive movement from him. The reason he's shooting 60% from the field is he's either getting dunks in transition or he's having the guards, either Toussaint or Bohannon, finding him in the post where he's basically there for a dunk, because he's very good going straight up, just vertically up and dunking the ball or finding a spot right underneath the basket. But for me, if I'm looking at a potential first round pick, you have to have better lateral movement, more explosiveness from the 3-point line and in, not just from underneath the basket, in a good or fairly good 3-point shooting percentage, because he does shoot pretty good from 3. But other than that, I just don't see a whole lot. Sorry for my son, he's coughing in the background. Just my opinion, I don't see that from him yet. Now, this is something that he can certainly work on and develop, come next year, because I don't see him leaving. But that's why I like calling into your show. You always give your honest opinion and take, even if you're disagreeing with us. But
let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, and I'm saying this with the utmost amount of respect to you, Vincent. But let me tell you something I think you're way off on. When you said that you don't even think he's a second-round pick, I think that's bogus. I think there's no way he's not a second-round pick. We can argue about whether he's a lottery pick. We can argue about whether he's a first-round pick. But heck, Aaron White got drafted in the second round. Jared Utoff would have been drafted in the second round had he wanted to be drafted. I know there's a backstory there. Devin Marble was drafted in the second round. All those guys, and you compared him to Jared. I think he's again. Maybe we can split hairs about him and Jared. I think there are reasons to say he's a bit a further ahead than a Jared. But Jared was also here. I mean, we're talking about a sophomore in Keegan, a true sophomore. But I don't think there's any way he's not a second round draft pick. If the draft was tomorrow, he would be a first round draft pick, in my opinion. I don't think there's any way on earth he would go undrafted. That's my opinion.
No, and again, that's why I love calling into your show, because you have your point of view and I have mine, and no disrespect whatsoever. I completely understand where you're coming from. I hope your prediction, if he were drafted at the end of this year, is right, that he does get taken in the second round. But if I'm a GM, there's certainly a lot of potential there, but I'd have to see more from him if I'm going to take him. And maybe let me correct it a little bit. I don't see him as a first round pick, not by any stretch of the imagination whatsoever. For me, I need somebody that has more explosiveness, going from the 3-point arc into the low block. I respect your opinion, Corey. And I hope that you're right.
Are you still with us, Vincent?
Oh, yep, I'm still here. Sorry, did you catch any of that?
Yeah, you were cutting out pretty good. But
Okay,
I think
sorry.
I caught the tail end. No, and you totally have a right to your opinion. I respect your opinion, and I agree. He's got and listen, he's shooting 36% from three, which is okay. I think he can shoot a better clip. He shot 5 of 6. I thought he looked like a lottery pick Monday, in my opinion. He looked like a lottery pick Monday. He was 5 of 6 from 3. He made the little Dirk turnaround fadeaway, which I thought was a pretty move. That's a pro move. So we'll see. He's got to be more consistent from outside. To me, that's the biggest thing. He's got to be more consistent from beyond the arc in order to validate a discussion about him being a lottery pick. I'll agree with you on that. I think he's a surefire second-round pick, but we'll see. It would help Iowa. I think we would both agree. It would really help Iowa, whether he comes out this year or next year. It would really help Iowa if he could at least be a first-round draft pick. Even if he's not a lottery pick, be a first-round draft pick, be a guy. Luka Garza is developing COVID. And Murray could come out and actually be an every the issues. We're having some technical issues. I'm not sure if they're on my end or if they're on Vincent's end. Or can you hear me, sir? Well, I apologize for that. Again, I'm not sure what the issues if they're on my. They may be on my end tonight. Maybe on my end. Might have to call the internet company in the morning. But Vincent, if you're listening to this, give us a call back. You were cutting out pretty good there at the end, but again, it might have been our signal on our end here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. But always appreciate the calls from Vincent, and it's a valid discussion. I thought he looked pretty good tonight, overshadowed by a team that's just a lot further ahead right now. And again, it's a home win for Wisconsin. You got to if you're going to make the tournament in this league, you got to protect home court. If you're not winning 75% of your home games or better, probably better than that, you're not making the tournament, because it's going to be tough to win on the road. The crowds are back right now. Students aren't. So this would have been an excellent opportunity for Iowa to get a road win at Wisconsin. But overall, you got to figure out a way to protect home court. That's what Wisconsin did tonight. And again, I have reason to believe that Keegan Murray, if the draft were tomorrow, he would be a first round draft pick. A lottery pick might be going a bit far right now. And he's got, again, the 3-point shot to me is the biggest thing. He's got to get a little bit more consistent. He's got a really nice looking stroke from 3, right? He's got a really good shooting stroke, but I agree he's got to get better from behind the arc. Hyperlocal, what are your thoughts on the best defensive lineup for Fran? Best defensive lineup. Well, I'd have to go Phillip at the 5. I know people are kind of down on Phillip Rebracha, but I'm not starting Ogundele or Mulvey. I mean, for defensive or offensive purposes right now. So I would go with Phillip Rebracha at the 5. And then defensively, Patrick, I struggle with Patrick. To me, he should be getting on the glass a little bit better than he is right now. Patrick, let me pull up the numbers for Patrick McCaffrey for tonight. Patrick ended up with, if I can read this, 7 boards. So not a bad night on the glass for Patrick. He actually led Iowa in but again, to be completely honest, to me, he can rebound the ball better. And so I'd probably still go Patrick because of his shot blocking ability. Keegan would be in there as well. Maybe Chris, but then you're talking a really long lineup with not much guard assistance. And then, of course, Tony Perkins. I like Aaron Eulis, so maybe he get the nod over Chris Murray.
Give me a couple
But certainly, again, if I'm looking at a defensive lineup, a guy like Eulis, guy like Perkins, those two guys are kind of struggling a bit offensively right now. Tony was playing well a few weeks ago, but defensively is where I was struggling right now. But you can't have one without the other in this league. You got to have both. Vincent, do we have you back on the line?
Yes, sir, Corey. Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yep, and it may have been our end. I think we're having some internet issues on our end, so I apologize.
No, you're good. I just like calling in because you'll tell me if you disagree and not have any problem with it. Anyway, to kind of go off of the Keegan Murray thing, again, I hope you're right. I hope I do hope he's a first round talent because it's going to help with recruiting other bigs. So anyway, I hope you're right in that regard. I kind of want to go to tonight's game if that's okay with you just for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. I know a lot of folks are talking about the Brad Davison leg kick out, which yes, obvious on camera. I don't know how the refs missed that either. And I also don't know how you don't overturn that. Knowing the kid's history. I mean, this is his 17th year at Wisconsin. I'm pretty sure the refs know that's kind of what the guy does. But two things I just wanted to point out, and then I'll turn it back over to you. Iowa's shot selection tonight was absolutely terrible from some of the players, and I'm going to go ahead and single out Patrick McCaffrey, Tony Perkins, and Tyler Eulis, which is something you kind of already touched on. Just bad shot selection, especially driving to the rim. Patrick McCaffrey probably more so than anybody sticks out to me just because of how many ill-advised off-key or off-kilter shots I saw him taking, but just extremely poor shot selection tonight. And then the second thing or last thing is rebounding, which I'm sure you guys have probably already addressed, and even more so the lack of or just rebounding in general. I know I saw, what's the young man's name, number 1, Davis. We had 3 Hawkeyes underneath the basket on a missed shot, and he just kind of came up from behind the three-point line or from the three-point line to snag a rebound and lay it in. Just terrible rebounding tonight. And Iowa looked like they played scared, in my opinion. And I'll turn it over to you, Corey. Sorry.
Well, they're getting out physicaled. I mean, they got pushed around against Iowa State, and you could argue that happened against Illinois and it happened tonight. So, yeah, physicality is a big part of this, I think, rebounding the ball. Now, Patrick McCaffrey, as far as shot selection is concerned with Patrick, that's just kind of how he is. I mean, you watch him in high school, he took a lot of unorthodox shots. When they're going in, we're not complaining about shot selection. So I see where you're coming from. I've said the same thing at times as well. And, Aaron Eulis, you hope his offensive game can come along because I think he's got great vision. He's got a good defensive prowess, and to me, he's a good ball handler. He's an excellent ball handler. So I agree with you. The rebounding is the biggest issue because defensively, I keep saying that they've got the horses to play defense in the half court, but man, rebounding is killing this team right now because they're not turning the ball over. This is like you saw the graphic on the screen tonight. Wisconsin and Iowa are the 2 teams that turn the ball over the least in this conference. So the fact that Iowa's turning the ball over as little as they are, they're shooting free throws better than anybody else in the conference, and they have the highest scoring individual in the conference, and yet they've lost by double figures to several opponents now would tell me that there's some category where they're really, really bad. And it's obviously rebounding. I can talk till I'm blue in the face about defense because it's been this way for 5 years. It's been bad since 2017. It's just never good. And it doesn't really seem to matter to the personnel. And that's the frustrating part. Maybe it's gotten a little bit better, but you take a step back in rebounding overall, you're kind of flatlining. So I would agree with you on the rebounding issue, no doubt about it. But like I said, shot selection, that's hard for me to evaluate the guy like Patrick just because of how unorthodox he plays.
True. Now, I realize that you were saying that's kind of his game, that running towards the basket, unorthodox shot. But if you're going to take that, you better be confident that you're going to make it or have a high percentage of making it.
You're right.
And not just throwing it up there. And to me, it looks like he's just kind of throwing it up there when it's heavily contested. That's just a bad shot, Corey. I'm sorry, but you need to be smarter as a player to realize if you're trapped, or if you have a defender on you, it's got you locked up, kick it back out or drive and look for somebody else, either, cutting to the rim, sitting behind the 3-point line. And again, I do realize that that's his game. And sometimes he's on with that. Other times he's off, and he's off bad. Tonight was one of those nights that he was off pretty bad with that. I do agree with you. Ulis is a good ball handler. Him and Tony Perkins have a lot of development to do when it comes to their perimeter game and their perimeter shot, because it would take a lot of pressure off of Bohannon or the bigs. If you can drive and then pull up, for a short perimeter jumper or something within 12 to 15 feet, those guys just haven't developed that yet, but they can. But just getting back to Patrick McCaffrey, yes, that is his game, but man, he just took some bad shots tonight, even though that's within his wheelhouse. And lastly, or go ahead, Corey. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, Vincent, as you're talking here, I'm seeing this comment from Nicholas D. He says, and I quote, "Iowa sucks. Iowa gets all the calls." He's got a big Badger logo in his profile picture. Do you have anything to respond to that?
What calls did Iowa get tonight?
I don't know.
What is he talking about?
Maybe Brad Davison. I don't know. To me, when Iowa plays Wisconsin, Iowa never gets the calls because they got Brad Davison. They've had Brad Davison for the last 5 years, and it seems like every year Iowa plays and Brad Davison does something dirty, or to me, that's outside the ring. People like to compare Brad Davison to a guy like Chris Kingsbury or someone who's just kind of gritty. To me, he's not anything like that. To me, like Aaron Kraft. Aaron Kraft wasn't dirty. Aaron Kraft just got under your skin. To me, it's pretty clear Brad Davison is a dirty player. And I hear Wisconsin fans all the time, oh, he does so much nonprofit work and he cares about the community. He literally tried to punch Connor McCaffrey in the no-no squares 2 years ago. And we're gonna sit here and act like he's a man of the people. That's just ridiculous. So anyways, I just figured I'd give an Iowa fan an opportunity to respond to a Homer Badger fan.
I'll say this. He can talk whatever he wants to about tonight's game, but last year they couldn't even sniff Iowa basketball. Right. We gave them 3 opportunities, and they came up short each time. To piggyback on to what you're saying, Brad Davidson is a good basketball player, a good collegiate basketball player, but he is dirty. He has the reputation not by accident, but because of the stuff that he does. And just to clarify, if Brad Davidson wasn't playing collegiate basketball, he'd probably be a criminal based off of the BS that he pulls on the court sometimes. I'm just being honest. He does some shady stuff, some stuff that's borderline. It's just very shady. I wouldn't say borderline criminal because that's being a little bit exaggeratory with it. But he does some shitty stuff, pardon my language, on the basketball court, where he's actually even hurt players during his collegiate career.
He's basically a worse version of Grayson Allen at Duke. He's basically just a worse version of Grayson Allen.
He's just shorter than Grayson Allen and doesn't have a pro career ahead of him. That's the only difference.
Correct.
Between
exactly.
him
That's what I mean.
And Brad Davidson.
Worse in every way than Grayson Allen.
Corey, I appreciate all the time, and sorry for the disconnect. I'll let another caller come in. Last thing I just wanted to say, which was something you were kind of talking about, with the lack of defense. I've seen this quote before from Fran McCaffrey as well as players. Fran's philosophy is, because I heard callers talk about not taking a timeout to stop a run, and I like the zone if it's working with Fran, but there's too many times that we're playing help defense, and as soon as the player drives to the lane or to the top of the free throw line, there's somebody open on a corner 3, and it kills us every time. The reason I say that is because Fran has said, just like his players have also quoted Fran by saying, I want to run because we have a better chance of winning. If we pile up a bunch of points, it's going to be harder for them to outscore us. And I know that they play defense. I know that they practice defense, but Fran's philosophy is we're going to outscore you by outrunning you in transition. So that's kind of his philosophy. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Here's what I'll say too.
By saying that.
Here's what I'll say to that. And hold on just a second, Vincent. I got to take care of something. I'll be right back.
Sure. Yep. No problem. Addie, stay over, please.
All right. Apologize for that, sir. When the family comes calling,
Nope,
you
you're
got to
good.
respond, as you well know.
Nope, you're good.
No, in response to that, when I think about, and I see some comments in there in the chat about it, but when we're talking about defensive units that Iowa deploys, specifically Fran, I've heard his philosophy defensively. Part of his philosophy is also to deploy a lot of different types of defense, right? And you can't stick with, I mean, again, you ought to be able to play zone, some form of zone, and man-to-man defense at this level. But when you're focusing so much on mixing up defenses, you're probably not going to get good at any defenses. So, to me, they say what do they say? A man of many trades is a master of none. And to me, that's part of Iowa's problem. To me, you need to figure out a way to excel in one defense before you move on to another one.
Absolutely true. There's nothing wrong with throwing in multiple defenses to throw off or to stymie an offense, but you have to be good at it, just like you just said. So sometimes if you're throwing too many out there and your players aren't executing it, you have to dial that back. You have to go ahead and simplify what you're doing, either from an offensive or defensive standpoint, to make sure that you're not putting your players in a bad position or leaving them exposed. So yes, I absolutely agree with you. You can't have too many where you're not good at any of them, when you can actually just maybe tone it down. Because I love the 3/4, and I'm trying to think of the phrase for it. Is it a 1-3-1 or something to that extent? Because I'm not a basketball guy, but I know that they do employ different defenses, which can be effective. But if you're not doing them all at a high level, you gotta scale it back. You have to make sure that you're not throwing your players out there to the wolves just because your philosophy is, well, the more defensive the more defensive schemes or changes we throw at them, the more we're going to interrupt their offense. Well, a lot of times these good offenses, like at Wisconsin, they'll say, okay, yeah, and we're going to score 87 points on you, which is the exact outcome tonight. So
yeah, I mean, anyway. They're pretty good at that press. Again, the fact that we have to deploy a press because we aren't effective. We really aren't effective man-to-man or zone. We can't count on either one of those. And I think that's part of Fran's philosophy is, well, we'll see if the man's working tonight, we'll stick with that. If the zone's working tonight, we'll stick with that. If neither are working, we're just going to keep switching back and forth and hope it confuses the defense. And to me, that's not really addressing the issue. The issue is we're not effective at playing defense, whether it's zone or man-to-man. So I agree. It is what it is. I cringe when I see Iowa in that full court press, though, because oftentimes if Wisconsin or an Iowa State gets past that initial front in that press, there's an easy bucket on the other end.
Yeah, because they're good at breaking that down. Or they have somebody that's ran down the court and has set up shop on either the bottom of the three-point line or the top of the three-point line, and we're always so vulnerable. And you'll see this yourself, Corey, as you already maybe have, or you'll continue to see it. When Iowa runs a zone and we do a double team, we're double teaming the wrong guy. We double teamed one of their reserves, or almost triple teamed them, leaving two three-point shooters open. And I've never understood that concept, because I would rather give up a tough 2 than an open 3. But some of Fran's defenses, this zone, either a 3-2 or 2-3, however he does it, we're leaving three-point shooters open because Fran's saying, well, the probability or the shooting percentages from the outside are much lower than they are as you get closer to the basket. But if they start knocking them down and get hot, you're bearing yourself a hole from behind because your opposition is shooting a higher percentage from behind the 3-point line. Instead of being down 6, you're down 9 or 12. I've never gotten that, and we keep doing that. I've seen many commentators make the same comment about Iowa leaving 3-point shooters open. We double team guys as they drive into the lane. If I have Toussaint and a Ulis and a Perkins, go ahead and go one-on-one with my guard, and I'll take it. If you can make a tough 2-point shot, hey, you go ahead and take it. But I'm not going to leave a 3-point shooter open all night like we've done with that kid Aarons from Ohio State in the past, who averages 7 points a game and goes off for 27 against us.
He's better now. He's better now, Vincent. But when he went off against Iowa, he wasn't doing nothing. You're right.
Yeah, but you'll see it. Just trust me, Corey. You'll be watching the game like, what was that guy's name that called in and said, Yep, we leave 3-point shooters open all the time because we think, or Fran thinks, it's his philosophy, which I've read some of his quote. It's a harder shooting percentage from the further you go from the basket out. So he's willing to take that chance versus giving somebody either an open drive to the basket or a perimeter jump or a perimeter shot.
But Vincent, we do that. We're not good at defending the basket. You know how many easy dump-ins there were tonight against? I mean, Iowa doesn't have a post presence, and the problem is your guys who are under 7 foot don't really know how to defend the post. I mean, we have no idea what we're doing one-on-one in the post.
No, we don't. No, we don't. You're
no idea
right.
at all.
And we don't have Ken Rebracha as much as
I like Rebracha. He's the best defender in there, though, Vincent. He's the best they got defensively.
Yeah, he does a fairly adequate job. He does better than I thought, but we need to go ahead and allow him to play one-on-one defense versus collapsing down, especially on a guy like Crow, number 22 for Wisconsin. Not sure who he is. Didn't even know he was there last year, but why are we going to double him and leave a perimeter shooter open or a 3-point shooter open? Go ahead and let Rebracha D him up one-on-one. If he makes a tough 2, so be it. Get back on D and then run your offense. But instead, we double down, leave open the corners, or leave open the 3-point line. And anyway, it's a redundant thing. It's as a fan, it's frustrating. And I'm rambling, Corey, so I'll turn it back over to you.
I appreciate it, Vincent. Thanks for the call and call in anytime. And I apologize for the internet issues earlier.
No, not at all. And again, I hope you're right with Keegan Murray. I'll correct myself. I think you're right. If he were drafted today, I think it would be, without question, he'd go somewhere in the second round. But when I keep hearing lottery pick in first round, that I just shake my head.
Here's what I'll say, and I'm going to quote one of the chatters here. I'm just going by what Oatmeal for Life says. So he says USA Today mock draft has Keegan at number 14 overall. Bleacher Report has him at number 8 overall. NBC Sports has him at number 25 overall.
Wow. I hope they're right. But I'm sorry. I don't see it as of today. I guess I'll say that.
Sure. Well, I hope you're wrong too. And we'll see. I mean, if this team can continue to improve, then they're going to win more games and he's going to get an opportunity to be in the spotlight. But got a long ways to go on the defensive end. We can agree on that. And I will say this, Vincent, I know you're a big football fan. I think the ship has sailed on Iowa grabbing a transfer quarterback, if that ship was ever docked, because basically everybody's off the board. Zach Calzada committed to Auburn today. We saw Casey Thompson has now narrowed his list, it sounds like, to 4 schools. Iowa's not on that list. We saw Connor Bazelak. He's committed to Indiana. So that ship has sailed. So I figured I'd just throw that into the mix as well.
Sure. And you said Deuce Hogan went to Kentucky. He's walking on. Is that right?
Yes, sir. He is.
Wow. I went back and watched some tape real quick of him, and I was quite impressed with what I saw from his spring practice videos and his 7-on-7 drills. It's upsetting to lose him, but what can you do now?
He's going. He'll earn a scholarship at Kentucky.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. Oh, I wanted to ask you. I know you're Iowa. Follow Iowa recruiting. Very last thing, real quick. Has anybody heard anything about? And it might be a sore subject for those in Ames. Has anybody heard anything about Xavier Foster? I know he was released from ISU, and I heard he was facing criminal charges. Is that right?
He has not been formally charged with any crimes. He's at the center of a sexual assault investigation. So
I was curious.
Yeah, he hasn't. There have been. I don't think he's probably. I think he's got bigger fish to fry than finding a new team. We'll see what happens with the criminal investigation. But obviously, Iowa State saw enough from their knowledge to not even wait and just because they could have easily just suspended him indefinitely, but they booted him off the team. So they took his scholarship away. So, there's got to be cause there. I hope him. I don't wish any kid ill will, but if he's guilty of something as serious as it sounds, then he's not playing basketball. That's the least of his problems.
Yep, I appreciate you clarifying. I just happened to see a news feed. It's been a while back now. I hadn't heard anything else on it, so I thought maybe you knew.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's still in Ames. I'm guessing he's back in Oskaloosa, but I have no idea.
Okay. Well, again, Corey, I certainly appreciate the call. And so have a good night.
Thanks, Vincent. Have a great night. And always enjoy the calls from Vincent. And apologize again for our internet issues earlier. I think we got those resolved, at least for the time being. And it shouldn't have mentioned football because now people are going to start going off on Spencer Petras in the chat. Sorry, Spencer. Didn't mean to do that. But bottom line is Iowa, not enough tonight. Excuse me, 87-78, the loss to Wisconsin on the road. We appreciate Coach Gary Close. By the way, Keegan Murray, I didn't put this line up. This is still a really good line. 27 points, 10 of 16 from the field, 5 rebounds. I get where Vincent is coming from, that he believes Keegan has a long ways to go before becoming a lottery pick. But the bottom line is he's leading the country in scoring, and I don't see that changing anytime soon because right now he's playing at offensively. He's playing at a level that you have to say he's one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the Big Ten. Even if you want to put Kofi and Johnny Davis a notch ahead of him, he's playing at an all-American level right now. So Iowa has to regroup. I mean, again, you have a week off here, and then it's all board the Big Ten train because you're not going to have much of a break after that. You go boom, 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 basically 2 games a week from the 13th of January until early March. So Iowa is going to have to figure out these rebounding issues. It looked like they'd corrected some of them, but they got exposed again tonight, and it killed them. Again, the loss to Wisconsin. So Iowa, Indiana, a week from tonight, 8 p.m., same time, same television network on Fox Sports 1. I believe this game is back in Iowa City. So an opportunity for Iowa to get back on the winning track. 1-3 in the Big Ten, so they need to win this game next week. We will be with you this Sunday with Coach Don Patterson. Iowa Live with Coach Don Patterson this Sunday over at the Iowa channel. So if you want a breakdown of the national championship, a preview of the national championship, college football national title game, tune over to Iowa at the Voice of College Football on YouTube. Iowa at the Voice of College Football on YouTube for a special edition of Iowa Live, where, again, we're not really talking Iowa. We'll be talking with Coach Don Patterson about the national championship game. He's got some analytics on both Georgia and Alabama. He'll be sharing those with us as well. So appreciate everybody joining us this evening. Take care. We'll talk to you a week from today here at Iowa Postgame. We'll talk to you over at the Iowa channel on Sunday. I'm Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Have a great